I'm kind of interested in the anime red flag, so I do hope we get to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you heard this is... Oh, no, I'm not going to go down this. I'm not going to derail the show immediately.
No, go ahead. We need an
you
opening.
have TikTok mention here. I was just going to ask if you heard the new TJ Maxx single.
No.
Chica's in my DMs.
No.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to do it to you.
Yeah.
We need an opener, but not that opener.
Not that opener. No.
It's catchy as hell, though.
Yeah. You know, maybe I should just open with the anime red flags then.
Sure.
Have we ever opened with a Moogle? I usually try to put it in the back half.
I feel like it's been entire episodes. Like,
well, sure. Yeah, but that's usually whenever I'm just like spitballing, that's whenever I'm on my bullshit, but yeah, I guess we could do it. Hey, what's up? It's the DeadEndRoad show, episode 93. Oh, is it 92 or 93?
I think last week was 92.
Okay, I was going to say, I think this is 93.
We're making the slow crawl towards 100.
Yeah.
Can we...
that has been a lingering thought
in my head. Can we just have 100 just be a normal episode? Something about podcast anniversary episodes kind of turned me away.
Yeah.
They feel like self-congratulatory.
I think for us especially, it would be very presumptuous.
What, just getting there?
To do something like that. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have the kind of reach where it's like, oh, let me compile a best of, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And also, I don't want to go through the trouble of doing that.
No, and then you're just like reusing like content. It's just, I don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. But after 100, I probably will force a new season.
Oh, what season are we in now?
Do that. This is currently season 3, technically.
Season 3.
Yeah, so I will probably just flip it over and do season 4.
Did I start doing this as season 1, or did I come in later?
I think that was technically still season... No, maybe that was season 2.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I began season 3 when you left the first time.
Yeah.
Or I guess that was you leaving the second time.
Wait, I didn't leave more. I only left one time, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did. Behind the scenes, you left twice.
Oh, that's very true.
But on the show, you left only once.
That's very true.
And so then, yeah, me doing the show on my own was the beginning of season 3.
I've had to regain your trust.
Yes. Still waiting for you to do the Facebook page. Still waiting on that.
Yeah, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of one just there. Nothing came to mind.
I wouldn't bring it up. It's just that you offered to do it.
Yeah. You handed over access. I think I even talked it up on the show a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it was going to correspond with the book
you had all
club.
these ideas about, there's this audience there and like all this shit.
Yeah, that's right. The built-in audience.
Yeah.
Maybe for the new season.
Sure.
Need a jumping off point,
Yeah. I feel like you said that exact phrasing before. I can't remember what it was. What episode was going to be the jumping off point?
Well, that just didn't feel right.
Sure.
It's a feel thing.
It wasn't that you completely forgot.
No, not at all. I'm very...
It was vibes based.
I'm professional.
Yeah.
It's all vibes based when it comes to this show.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Anyway, it's time for the show's favorite segment. Did it all for the Moogle. Great. This is the show where I frequently talk about JRPGs and sometimes anime or other kind of adjacent media that I want to talk about. And sometimes it does take up whole episodes of the show because sometimes I have to talk about Final Fantasy XIV for an hour and a half. It's just what happens. But on this occasion, so I don't use TikTok, as we've discussed a lot. But what happens is sometimes you will send me a TikTok. Mm-hmm. And when I open it, what happens is TikTok sends me first to the For You page. Then it opens the TikTok that you sent me. And I watch whatever that is. And then I have to respond to you. And then I close the TikTok.
That sounds like such an obligation.
A lot of times it is, because there was the one day you sent me like 6 or 8 of them.
Oh, that's such no way.
I could scroll back up and count them if I really had
max. It was 3
No,
max.
it was not. It was more than 3. It was more than 3. It was excessive. And
I kind of want you to look back because I really think it's 3. This is not good audio. I know that.
No, it's not.
I will sit here in silence.
Looks like it was 4.
Was it?
Yeah.
Had to have been a couple
TikToks.
Miles, right?
I don't want to open them again.
I almost sent you a Miles karaoke video last night. It was very good.
Aren't all TikToks karaoke videos because they put the text on the screen?
That's not the only stipulation of karaoke. This is like an actual like karaoke setting, and someone got up and did Miles. And in the comments, they called him because he was white. They called him.
It wasn't the grandma song, was it?
No, it was Four Wheeler Classic.
Okay.
Classic, yeah.
Okay.
Someone in the comments.
Wait, isn't that that's the grandma one?
Oh, there's so many. Like I feel like
we're completely off the rails now, but hold on.
Oh, his grandmother called him a yeah. And he very respectfully did not use the, well, you'll hear it.
Jack just want to drink.
My grandma just called me a fucking nigger. I don't know why she mad, so I had to hit her.
Yeah. That's a choice for karaoke.
Yeah, it is. Wait, can I send you the...
Oh, God.
Let me see. I just like that someone in the comments called this kid, kilometers.
Jesus.
Wait, here we go.
Did you text it to me? How am I going to play this on the podcast?
I have TikTok on my phone. I don't know. When am I going to email it to you?
Discord, you dingus.
It's on my computer. There's a disconnect. I don't have it.
How am I supposed to play this on the podcast?
Okay, give me a second. Do you have your email open?
I can. I'm on the computer. Just install Discord on your phone.
Well, that would take even longer. You know what?
I mean, in general.
Let me find it. Hold on. Oh, I was trying to see what TikTok account this video came from, and it's from Miles.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
All right, let me do a search for it now. Here we go.
This is not how I wanted this episode to go.
You said you needed an opener.
I know.
Here we go.
Pandora's box. Oh, TikTok, I hate you so much. Why would I want it to start playing muted? Like...
My grandma just called me up. I don't know why she's mad, so I had to hit her. While my cousin looking for his four-wheeler. I just had to get me some water and some sugar. You don't got enough tissue in here. Why your car only got to the first gear. I feel like DC Young Fly bring that here.
Wasn't this so worth it?
It's... Like, I don't want him to have said it, obviously, right? Because this might be one of the whitest people of all time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think he's wearing cowboy boots under those jeans.
No, you never say it, but the fact that it's the first line of the song maybe makes you think he should have chosen a different Miles song.
Exactly.
Like,
because it's the first line and it rhymes. It's the rhyme. You know,
it's the rhyme.
I don't want him to say it.
Yeah, like you could have gone like with Frederick Douglass. You could have gone with like that holiday song.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. There's a wealth. There's a whole back catalog. Yeah. You're right.
There's a comment here. It says he missed some parts. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. So I don't use TikTok. I don't like the platform. But whenever you send me a TikTok. After I'm done watching the TikTok, it sends me back to the For You page. Mm-hmm. And so then sometimes I just see whatever's there. And I saw a TikTok. I didn't save it because I don't really know how that operates on the platform.
What do you mean?
I don't know bookmarking. I don't know.
You just whatever. You like it or you bookmark it, and either one will save it.
No. Here's the thing. So everything is so ephemeral on there. So like it's like a fucking like lotto. It's like pulling the slot machine, right? Where you just kind of keep going. You keep scrolling. So I watched it and then I just kind of kept scrolling for a while. And then only afterwards I was like, you know what? That probably would have been good discussion material.
Well, it sounds like you need to have better judgment in the moment. You don't blame the platform for that.
No, I do, because that is the habit it creates.
I saved this karaoke song for the show. I had no problem doing that last night.
No, you didn't. You had to look it up.
Well, no, I sent it to you from my saved videos, but I texted it and that wasn't good enough for you.
It's not good enough for me. How was I going to play it on the podcast?
I don't know. Copy paste from
my phone.
And you could like email it to yourself or something. There's plenty of ways.
What year is it? 2005? Anyway, my point is I don't have the TikTok here, but I will explain the TikTok to you.
Oh, that sounds rough.
This is the oral tradition. So in the TikTok, the girl is saying, I want to create the most, I want to attract the worst possible dudes on, I think it was either Hinge or Bumble possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's trying to craft the worst dating profile possible.
Well, that's fun.
And this is actually good. This is actually good because it was a purely visual TikTok anyway. So I would have just had to relay all this information to you anyway. And so she puts like the standard old red flags, like my favorite movies, Fight Club, Infinite Jest, you know, all those old jokes, right? Then for whatever reason, she says my favorite anime, and she proceeds to list literally all of my favorite shows.
Evangelion?
Evangelion, Monogatari.
Oh, geez.
Serial Experiments Lane, Welcome to the NHK, Paranoia Agent, Boogie Pop Phantom. Like these are like deep cuts.
They really are. I don't understand.
These are deep cuts. And I'm like,
I would have figured like Attack on Titan or something would be the way to go.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So this sent me on a little bit of a spiral.
Yeah.
Thinking like,
you're a red flag.
Yeah. So it just kind of, it caused a little bit of introspection where I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Or is this just like purely bait to get a bunch of dudes to say, well, what's wrong with any of those?
Like you're doing right now.
Like I'm doing right now. But here's the thing. So we've touched briefly on some of the more iffy aspects of people that are into Serial Experiments Lane. We talked about that Lane cult like last year.
Yeah.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And people that use Lane profile pictures to be like pretend to be like very edgy dudes. So like that one I can get.
And even
one I can
there,
see.
It's appropriation. It has nothing to do with the actual show itself.
Of course. Monogatari, people weirdly, unfairly label as quote unquote, and I saw this in the comments of the TikTok, an incest show based off of one like gag scene that became a meme. Well, which I'm not going to defend. I'm not going to defend, by the way.
Sure,
it's a weird scene.
If it became a meme, then it's likely a lot of people's only encounter with the show, and so that's kind of what
which
they
is where it gets labeled the incest show.
Sure.
Whenever there are actually like incest anime,
sure. Oh yeah, I think we've actually
talked about a couple at least. Mm-hmm. Citrus comes to mind.
Yes.
And so this just kind of made me just like. Okay, so it's like, is it like, are these shows pretentious? Is that what it's being labeled as? Like, you can't necessarily say that like any of these are on the level of like the dude with the copy of Infinite Jest, right?
Or even Fight Club.
Or Fight Club.
Such a cliche, you know?
Yeah.
No, because these anime are like art house essentially, right. And so they are not in the like if you were to find their
you can't put
film equivalents, they would not line up with like a Fight Club. That's way too mainstream, way too like on
I have
the nose.
never seen another soul talk about Ergo Proxy, right? Except for me when I talked about it in our last episode. or two episodes ago, right? And you could say I'm a hipster or whatever. I'm not. I watched the show for the first time in 2015 and it came out in like, I don't know, 2002 or some shit. But like, it's just nobody knows what that is. You know, it's like the slowest fucking show you've ever seen. And actually, the only one that was on this list that like was not like literally the only show that I like don't consider one of my favorites was Monster, which was that serial killer anime that I briefly mentioned on the show, like also probably last year, that I fell off of because it was just too slow moving for me. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are really into that one. So that was probably like the most mainstream show on the list. But yeah, it's just like you're dropping these deep cuts and it's just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think you're putting too much weight on one person's little idea here, right? This is one person's video. This is not representative of like, although it does bother me a bit that because like Infinite Jest and Fight Club, that's very on the nose.
Yeah, those are like the old standbys.
You might as well have said Pulp Fiction as well.
That she might have had that also as in the movies.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah,
it's the old college dorm room posters, right?
Yeah,
it's you know,
Who has the Serial Experiments Lane poster in their dorm room?
Right. So I don't know. I'm probably putting too much fucking stock into a 25-second long TikTok.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But
it's concerning.
It just like precisely nailed so directly. Who the fuck talks about Welcome to the NHK? I never see anybody talk about that show.
Well, also, this video, I don't know how popular it was, but like...
I don't either.
It found its way onto your For You page probably because of those animes. Anime. I don't know if the plural of animes is animes. I'm not sure.
It's like vinyl, yeah.
Okay.
The plural of anime is anime, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, it found its way specifically to you because of that.
I don't necessarily... Yeah, that's the other thing about TikTok that's so creepy, because like I'm not actually even like engaging in anime content on there. Mm-hmm. And for it to precisely have a TikTok that has defined my taste in anime to such a hyper degree where if I needed to list out my top 5, it has that, like right there, you know?
I'd say that's on its own is more concerning than you potentially being a red flag.
It's all concerning.
It's all concerning. None of it's good.
I honestly, like, wouldn't the red flag anime be like the incest one, the teacher one, you know, like the other teacher one, the other incest, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, it's a medium that has received a lot of criticism for many different reasons. So it's hard to really.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was a weird occurrence.
Well, you're a moderator on OkCupid, so I think you're fine.
I don't have an account on there anymore. I encountered that real life anime woman and I was out. I had nothing more to do with it. Anyway, we have some high art to talk about. We back in, I guess it was August. Back in August, for our book club, we picked
Infinite Jest.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yep. You know what's bad is that I do have a copy of Infinite Jest.
See, that's not something you should have admitted immediately after that last segment.
But I was an English major.
So it was assigned?
I think certain David Foster Wallace was assigned.
But not that one in particular.
I think segments of it were.
Okay. Questionable.
I think that shit is overblown. It has that stigma because it's like a big book and dudes wanted to seem impressive by owning a big book.
Are you defending Infinite Jest now?
As a book? For sure. Have you read it?
No, have you?
Yeah.
Well, then, okay, so then maybe you do have reason to be concerned.
Do you even know that? Okay, all right. The reason why that joke started was not because of like any of the content of the book. It was because dudes wanted to seem impressive and that they were like worldly or intelligent.
Well, right now you're talking about how you own a copy and how you've read the book and all this stuff. So,
well, because I just looked over and I was like, oh, I do see my copy of Infinite.
Oh, you've got it on display, do you?
I put books on a bookshelf. It's not like on display. It was that was the joke though. Was that, remember what was that show on FX? About dating.
That doesn't narrow it down very much.
I know it doesn't. But Eric Andre was on it.
Oh yeah. Man Seeking Woman.
Yeah, that was it. So like that was the bit on the show, was that he put the copy of Infinite Jest on his nightstand, mm-hmm. but he hadn't read it, of course. But it was like, oh yes, like I read very large books. Very intelligent books. I
think the modern equivalent is that TikTok trend where the guy's like, where have I placed my feminist literature books?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's not the content of Infinite Jest itself.
Well, you would know because you've read it.
Yeah. I just do think it's like kind of funny to criticize a
And didn't
book.
You say that Fincher used to be like your favorite filmmaker?
He was up there. I actually don't like Fight Club is like one of his weaker works.
By one of your favorite filmmakers, though.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. Things are just starting to add up a little bit.
Seven's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Panic Room.
Oh, yeah. Terrific movie.
Social Network.
Oh, yeah. A film
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Uh-huh.
Gone Girl.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of,
Mank.
you know,
Don't forget Mank.
I never saw Mank.
Oh, Mank's very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, his Netflix show that got canceled.
Oh, Mindhunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're checking off a lot of boxes from this TikTok video is all I'm saying.
I don't like Fight Club. I really, really vehemently dislike Tarantino. You know what's funny though is that the girl in the TikTok had a Lane shirt.
Okay,
so
I mean that explains a lot. So these are probably all anime that she likes as well. I mean, it's a bit. At the end of the day, it's a bit.
Yeah. So it's like, well, what's the goal here?
Sure.
What's going on?
Maybe anime itself for her was the red flag, and she was just listing off the ones that she knows.
Maybe. That's a very specific taste.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I just like how you're trying to make me some kind of closeted creeper or something.
Well, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I mean, you have a copy of Infinite Jest sitting by you as you record, so I didn't, I thought it was...
It's because my room's small. I'm near my bookshelf.
Oh, the room's small and the book is so huge.
Well, it is. It is. It's in the spine has the text in bold letters.
So yeah, it was 5 months ago that we announced this book club pick?
Yeah, it was back in August, and I finished it this morning.
Same.
I really, it was like I was back in college. I put it off until the last minute, did the reading.
Crunching.
Yeah, I just really needed a deadline, to actually just get it done. Because it's a very easy, quick read.
Oh,
all
yes.
things considered.
Oh, the pacing.
All things considered.
It's a page turner. Yeah, it could not be a better flowing novel. Like, it's hard to put down in a way, but that doesn't change the fact that it took us this long to get here. Yeah,
I've talked about it before where the deeper I'm into a current project for DeadEndRoad Publishing, the harder it is for me to currently keep up with reading, which is just feels antithetical, but that's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same for podcasting too. Ever since I started doing weekly episodes, I don't listen to nearly as many podcasts as I used to, and I practically don't really listen to them much anymore. It's just kind of the same thing. You just find less time to enjoy or keep up with the media in that industry that you're actively working in. It's just it's kind of like a seesaw act where it's just up and down, consuming or creating in that space, I guess. Yeah, the one pushes out the other. But yeah, finally finished it, finally read it. Oh wait, no, I totally just hijacked your intro. So what is the book again? Yes, right. You were trying to turn me into some red-pilled weirdo or something. So Yellowface by R.F. Kuang is a novel about a sort of struggling writer who is our narrator, who has another writer friend who they went to school with, and who is very successful. Is a successful Chinese American writer who sort of shot up to stardom while they were still kind of in school. And she's very jealous of that writer friend and her success, and while she's struggling after her first book flopped. And she kind of doesn't really feel like they're actually friends. They're just kind of friends for appearances and because they went to school together. And she doesn't really feel like she gets anything out of their friendship. And in the first chapter, she sort of goes to her apartment after I forget the circumstances of why specifically. I think they were celebrating some kind of success. Yeah. That the successful writer Athena had, and Athena ends up dying in her own apartment that night. And the struggling writer, who's, I forget, June, right? Yes. Yes. Juniper. Yeah. Takes her unfinished manuscript for the book she was working on and adds a little bit of her own to it, rewrites some stuff, and passes it off as her own work. And that's sort of the impetus for the rest of the novel. And that manuscript is heavily focused on Chinese American history and Chinese history. Yeah, it's concerning the use of Chinese laborers by I believe the British mostly, and also Canada, I think, during World War I. And so it's very hyper focused on this slice of history to this unknown Chinese experience, and June is a white woman, and Athena was Chinese American, and so that obviously with the book being titled Yellowface, we're dealing with a lot of racial dynamics. The earlier parts of the book, we'll get the whole thing, but the earlier parts of the book deals head on with like, oh, well, who can publish what kind of story? Who has the right to tell what kind of story? And obviously plagiarism, you know, is a main focal point throughout the entire book. Mm-hmm. But yeah, throughout, it just touches on, so like there are so many just little like lines to talk about the publishing industry as a whole.
Yeah, right. Because like its main focus is privilege and ownership of a story and authenticity and all these things. But it also, just by the way of how the story unfolds, is it takes you through all the little nuances and the steps of the publishing industry and you know, everything from agents to, book tours and social media and marketing and, movie deal, like everything that is involved in today's, you know, if you're an author publishing a book, mm-hmm. It just kind of gets very granular about all that within the context of this author stealing another author's work and how messy and involved that is.
Yeah. Like I throughout, I was just highlighting so many things where it's like, yep, that's real. Yep. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just like, even like just trying to highlight how pretentious Athena was, where there was Athena uses a typewriter, no word backups, no Google Docs, no Scrivener, just scribbles in moleskin notebooks. And it's like, yep, I know exactly that kind of person.
Yeah.
There were so, like in college, just like the people that would like post photos of them like buying an old typewriter. It's like, okay, you're not really going to use that.
Yeah, I know.
Come on. Yeah, just like so many.
And then there's the like marketing side and everything that comes along with releasing a book outside of actually writing the book. So like there's a quote here where the narrator is describing what kind of like literary voice she wants to be known for. And she's mm-hmm. comparing it to that of Athena's, the woman whose work she stole. And she says that quirky, aloof, and erudite is Athena's brand. Commercial and compulsively readable, yet still exquisitely literary, I've decided will be mine. So it's just like,
yeah,
so many things are very, they don't seem calculated, but they are, right? It's something that a publicist or an agent always has to think about, or an author themselves. Mm-hmm. Like even when the book has been released, she talks about, there's another quote here, they're also investing big in bookstore placement, which means that from the day that it's out, my book will be the first thing people see when they walk into any Barnes and Noble across the country.
Yep.
You know, so like everything from, website reviews to placement on the shelves, it's all dictated by factors that are usually have very little to do with the work itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that book placement is like such a big one, because it's just down to a publisher like making deals with Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
Like it has so little to do with the quality of the book or even necessarily how it's selling. It has a lot to do with like volume discounts, or like whether they can get the author in that specific store, and whether that author being in that specific store, like how many people they could actually get into the physical store for that event. Because that's what the manager of that Barnes & Noble will want, is a lot of bodies in the store, so they will buy shit.
Right.
Like that's the kind of shit that like dictates book placement. It is not even necessarily like, you'll see the stand at the first thing. It'll be like, oh, hot summer reads or whatever, And it's not even that the book is necessarily selling well, or that it's like critically reviewed well, or is actually like something that the staff who might or might not care about books, or might just be, a minimum wage, clerk, like is actually like curating. It has nothing to do with that at all.
If that book is going to become a hot summer read, quote unquote, it's likely because it was placed on that table mm-hmm. or shelf.
Yeah. And just like so many things, like seeing the just like name dropping like Kirkus Reads and Kirkus Reviews and like Library Journal. It's like, yep.
Goodreads, yeah. And then, of course, you have the social media aspect of it, which as June starts to face backlash for, at first the rumors of what she's done and then the actual evidence and things spiral out of control. But like there's always, the Twitter backlash, the Instagram messages. It's the way that she interacts with the industry, right? Through like, publicists, like press releases about like a movie deal or a cover reveal or something like that. Like she's so fixated on social media for, her own self-esteem, for keeping up with the industry, because like everything revolves around it, right?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's very funny. Like starting at the midpoint, the novel becomes more about social media than even publishing or like about much else.
It does, because that's the court of public opinion.
Yeah, it's actually even more hyper specific to just being about Twitter.
Yeah,
which is funny to think about even now. Just like.
Does this novel that, sorry to cut you off there, but does this novel that came out earlier this year feel a little bit outdated already? Yeah,
it's so wild to think about, because even just last year, presumably whenever this was going through, its final editorial process and when they probably had a publishing date for it, stamped out, right? Twitter would seem like too big to fail or too important to fail. Like as a public institution, and now it's a joke, right? And so like it's so funny to think about, like even before, where I would talk about how bad Twitter is, even before the Musk takeover and shit, and like because you had left like before that.
I left before it. I came back, so I was back on the platform, and then Musk took over. And shortly after Musk took over, there were like his entire like security, and by security I mean like, I don't know what you call it, but like the IT staff that like handles like I don't know. There's just like a breakdown at the office, and everybody was leaving, and I'm like, this platform does not even seem safe to be on anymore. Yeah. So I bounced again after that, and I haven't come back since.
Yeah, but you would always say to me, it's like, yeah, I don't even know why you're still there.
Sure.
And it was it's because this is where discussions are taking place in media. And as of small of a fish as I am, and still am, and will continue to be in my foreseeable future, it still felt necessary to be there to see these discussions taking place. And a lot of them were bullshit. A lot of them were unnecessary gossip and dogpiling and fighting and people having super unnecessary moralizing, grandstanding, whatever. But at the same time, it still felt necessary to see what was going on. And the book does convey that. But now, looking at it, it's like, as the site is floundering and grasping for air like a dying fish, it seems a little silly. But it's just so funny. Just the way that within the span of a year, I would say, between, this book being probably finalized and, dated and released, it like the whole second half of the book, like a little bit of the gravity of this narrator spiraling is kind of lost, because it's like, well, this is just Twitter bullshit. And at the same time, you probably still could have made that statement and said, oh, well, this is just Twitter bullshit. And there's like a couple characters that kind of do. But whenever she says like, no, it was important to be on there, it was important to be on that platform, I understand that. As of tiny of a fish, I keep using fish metaphors, I don't know why, as I am, I understood that, because it gave you that immediate access to see Neil Gaiman just like tweeting like regular updates at people, at readers, at whatever. It has that immediacy of reach and immediacy of access that a lot of other platforms don't. And we still don't have a replacement for it yet, and we might not. And it was very good for writers in particular, because it was a text-based platform. So I get it completely.
Yeah,
but it is just very funny.
It's funny. It's fascinating because reading this book, you feel like the author, R.F. Kuang, has such a firm grasp on what she's doing here. She lives in this world. She knows the politics and the nuances and everything that goes along with this story. And it's so incredibly smart about everything that it does. And at the time of its writing, it just nails the social media thing. And like you're saying, here we are, a year out and the landscape feels different. And that's not to say that's, one aspect of this book. I think this book is going to, unfortunately, always in large part be relevant and ring true with the industry as a whole and what it has to say about the industry as a whole. But yeah, the Twitter thing is fascinating because it does. You're right. It does sort of. There's a bit of a disconnect reading it now, which is no fault of the author. It's not a criticism of this book. It's just the context of what's happened since it's been published.
Right. And but it just goes to show like the importance of that platform to this group in particular and how it seemed just too big to fail.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. It makes me think about like this novel is going to be read by people decades from now, in theory. What do those people make of these little details of the story that revolve around social media and like this narrator just sitting in her apartment for weeks on end, not interacting with anybody, but absolutely losing her mind because of what's happening on social media? Yeah,
a lot of it will just probably seem like relics. A lot of the publishing stuff won't.
True.
Like talking about where did I just have here's a quote. They're talking about payment schedules, earn out bonuses, world rights versus North American rights, audio rights, all these things that weren't even part of the conversation from my debut sale. Like things like that, just because of the behemoth that like large publishing is. That shit is just so ingrained. That's not going to change. That's fine. But stuff like was it still cool to have public beef on Twitter, or was beef now reserved only for Discord? Like in 10 years, that's going to seem like quaint, Or like, was WordPress better or for Squarespace for author websites?
And this is maybe a little bit unfair of me to say, but I feel like this is why I mainly read contemporary literature. For one, I'm just not, I guess I just don't have the mind to really dive into something like an Infinite Jest, for example. I just, I'm not on your level. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop. No, but there is something to be said about reading a work within a time frame of when it was written and kind of understanding a lot of the context around it as it's most relevant. And obviously some works are timeless and a lot of themes, even, in this book, a lot of the themes and the critiques and the major points of this book are unfortunately going to continue to remain relevant for the foreseeable future and have these problems have existed as long as publishing has been a thing. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something that I gravitate towards. I reading something in the same time that it's been written for some of the reasons we're talking about, But what do you think of like the larger themes of this book when it comes to what it has to say about white privilege and plagiarism? And because I think this book is so effective in so many ways, one of them being you just, and maybe this is maybe this is more a reflection of where my mind needs to change, but like she makes you sympathetic towards this narrator who has stolen someone's work and is like villainizing those who are speaking out against what she's done. In part because you have this sort of take culture, or like, I don't want to say cancel culture, but that's affiliated with like this.
Primary, this novel, especially the later stages, are concerned with quote unquote cancel culture.
Yeah. So when you're
or like dogpiling or online hate mobs, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Because, there's like death threats and all the usual awful stuff that comes along with a social media hate mob that gets sent towards the narrator's way. But even like Adele Sparks Sato, right? The essayist, or the one of the figures who is most like vocally outspoken against the narrator, against June. You're reading it from her perspective and you're like almost villainizing this person who's completely correct about what she's saying.
Yeah.
But I think the author here is so effective in getting you in, you know, in her frame of mind that you almost lose your perspective a little bit, because you're rooting for this person who's like profiting off of white privilege and making a career out of it and lying and manipulating, and which is the point. I know that's the point. It's just very effective.
You see, for me, like I could see what Kuang is doing here, like where there are stages where you're meant to start sympathizing with June. You're meant to be in her space, like you're in her head, going through this with her. And when she starts getting death threats and she's like sort of, you know, not losing her grip on, well, she kind of starts losing her grip on reality a little bit, but, you know, she starts like throwing up at the stress and all kinds of stuff like this. But at every step of the way, she makes her thoroughly unlikable.
Yes, that's true.
Because she, at every stage, she just ramps up the racism.
Yes, that's very true. And usually every setback she has further like reaffirms in her mind that she is in the right here. Yeah. And so she just gets more and more extreme in that conviction. So you're definitely right. There's like a ebb and flow to this. At times you're sympathetic and then you kind of snap back to reality when June says something like, you know, this is my book and I more than anyone else have like authored it and I should be entitled to everything that's coming to, like, stuff like that. Yeah. She just gets delusional and like fully believing her own bullshit. Yeah, there you go.
These clout chasing white, quote, allies and Asian activists seeking attention who are acting up. I am not the bad guy. I am the victim here.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But then she does it again in the next chapter.
Yeah.
And so it's very smart. It's very well written in that way, where you just like sort of have to keep breaking the spell of this character that you're following. But yeah, I don't know. It's it just feels like
here's just another example, because there's a point where like she starts seeing all the people that are supporting her, and they're just characterized as Trump supporters and Fox News watchers and everything else. And there's a quote from one of them. And so I had to explain this to you. I had to explain the libertarian guys with Asian wives thing.
Yes.
And then we get an example from there's a guy that just says, been with my Thai wife for 3 years now, and they still think this gaijin can't handle it. Love to prove them wrong. And he's talking about like eating spicy food. But I highlighted that in particular because it's just clear like racism, because he says he has a Thai wife, but then uses a Japanese phrase. It's just like, okay, man, sure.
And there's the sense of entitlement, the privilege that goes along with everything in this book, every action that she takes. She gets more and more like affirmed in her mind that she deserves the achievements that she's gotten off the back of her dead friends who she's stolen from.
I did. This might derail things, but I did want to get your take on this quote, and I don't know if you remember this or not. Like Taylor Swift, I had no intention of becoming a white supremacist Barbie.
I highlighted it.
Yeah.
Did I miss this in like the discourse with Taylor? I honestly don't know what it's referring to.
A lot of neo-Nazis see Taylor Swift as like the perfect sort of like Aryan like goddess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what that is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that in that sense it fits with what's happening to her, because she's like so defeated by the time that like Fox News bit comes up, that she's like, yeah, even support from this group is something that she's willing to accept because it's support, whereas everyone else is like vehemently against her, right? So it's like it makes sense. In that context, it's a good line. I just missed that. I missed that whole thing.
Oh yeah. But yeah, as far as the plagiarism thing goes, the novel makes some weird equivalences.
Okay.
And it's hard to separate what is really the narrator here and what is meant to be a larger point. And so there's like frequent mentions of just like, so obviously June completely stole this work that was not hers, like to take or to rewrite or whatever, you know, it was just the most clear cut case of plagiarism there can be. Like there's, you know, that's the obvious bit. But then it tries to get into this like murkier shit where it tries to equate what she did with Athena taking conversations that she has had with other people and saying that is and turning those into stories and sort of equating the two together.
Yes, because Athena in college, when she was friends with June disclosed something traumatic that happened to her, just, you know, talking between friends. And then months later finds out that her story, like beat for beat, is in something that Athena wrote and got published.
Yeah.
What was that? We covered a couple of years ago. There was that, like, it kind of went viral. There was that
cat person.
Cat person?
Yeah.
Do you remember the details of that?
Yeah. So there was a story that went viral. I think it was the New Yorker. It was probably the New Yorker. Mm-hmm. It was a story about a college girl who started dating an older guy who was like in his mid 30s or whatever. And he was creepy or whatever. And so she broke things off. I can't remember. It was like nebulous if he was like forceful or whatever, I think. I'm misremembering the details of the story itself. But they break it off and he ends with like texting her bitch or whatever, or like slut or, you know, whatever, like something like that. Then it comes out later that somebody that knew the writer of the story in college says that the story was basically her experience in college. And so a lot of people just sort of take sides, whether it's like, was this person's story to tell or not? Or, you know, like, but it's fictional, but it was heavily inspired by this other person's experience, but the names were changed, but all this, blah, 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 back and forth. And I think it was turned into a movie starring Cousin Greg.
Okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something else about like a organ donation?
Organ donation.
There was like a story that felt like in a similar vein. Maybe I'm getting my things mixed up, but like there was like, I think it was also in the literary landscape where an author, I don't know. The cat person one is a very good example of what R.F. Kuang's doing here. Because like there's also...
the Bad Art Friends.
Bad Art Friends.
I remember now.
Yes, Bad Art Friends. Similar kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Was there an organ donation or am I losing my mind?
No, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm very fuzzy on that one. But like, yeah, so like, you know, Athena's ex-boyfriend, Jeff, who plays into the narrative, especially later on, he had felt like Athena was mining his emotions for you know, writing ideas and things like that. But yeah,
and then there's also the part where Athena went to I think it was the Korean War Museum or something like that.
Yes,
and was taking notes about the experiences of individual like Korean soldiers, and then she turned that into stories as well. And so like they're trying to equate that as plagiarism, which it's not.
It's not, but it's also morally questionable.
I don't think it is.
Well, I guess that's where the debate lies, right?
Right. But so like, here's the thing.
But the plagiarism that goes on is cut and dry, like you said. So it's not a one-to-one equivalence. It's more nuanced.
Right. It's not a one-to-one equivalence. But like the way that it's drawn out to be is that it's used as ammunition, mostly by people that aren't writers. They just see, oh, you took something that like quote unquote wasn't yours and boom, pooped out a story. So that's theft. But like that isn't really how writing operates. Like, you look at Cat Person, and it's a story that resonated with a lot of women because it's a story that happened to them too. It was a very common occurrence where they dated a guy. He turned out to be creepy. He was an older guy. He was creepy. They broke things off, and then he turned around and was completely nasty to them afterwards. He wasn't really a great guy, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a tale as old as time. And for someone to freak out because it's like, oh my God, she like stole my life story to write the story, and like so many of the details were exactly the same. And it's like, yeah, she might have heard about this and turned it into a short story, but like that, like you don't have ownership on those. Like, you don't have ownership on that archetype. You know what I mean?
I do.
So it's like the same thing. Like, you take inspiration from everything around you. You take bits and pieces of conversations of little tiny stories. Like on my sticky notes on my laptop right now.
You have notes about Infinite Jest lines that you love.
Yeah, for sure. I have a note that says, because like I just hear wild shit from my grandmother.
Oh yeah.
Like when I visit. And so I just have a note that says TV repairman that killed himself. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't know if I'll ever use it, but it's like, I just had to write that down. Mm-hmm. But like, I didn't experience that. Mm-hmm. Well, is that stealing? Is that theft?
I see what you're saying.
Is that plagiarism?
I think in the case of what is going on with Athena here, it's that not only is she doing this, she's doing it all the time. She's doing it intentionally, and she's doing she's doing it in a way that's like not taking into account the feelings of the people that are close to her.
That's writing.
I don't know. I think it's a little bit less.
Writers are assholes.
Okay, well that's not true. I mean, it's not universally true. That's very not universally true. I think you're projecting a little bit here.
No, here's the thing. There's another quote in here that I had to highlight because it feels like another weird equivalence. Where again, the narrator is trying to like defend.
No, well, I don't think this is an equivalence on the author's part, right? Because this is a narrator who is deeply problematic, and she's grasping for whatever she can to justify her actions.
Right. So here's Isaac Asimov was a serial sexual harasser. So was Harlan Ellison. David Foster Wallace abused, harassed, and stalked Mary Carr. Mm-hmm. They're still hailed as geniuses. Mm-hmm. And so she's basically saying, the line that precedes is basically like, if you're a straight white male, you can get away with it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, you have a higher likelihood of getting away with it completely. But the difference here, though, is that all three of those dudes are dead. She isn't. I think that's the big difference.
Well,
I think you have a lot less guilt reading Asimov, Ellison, and David Foster Wallace than you do a contemporary author who has caused harm.
I don't know if that's
because the other three are fucking dead.
True, though. I don't know if I agree with that, because I think people were reading them as they were alive too, and that didn't really change.
When they were alive, they weren't aware of the abuse, but that's a different story.
Okay,
that's just more of a question of knowledge. Most people, whenever he was, again, I don't. This you turn this into the David Foster Wallace defense hour, and it shouldn't be.
No, it really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be.
But when he was alive, most people didn't know that he was a partner abuser.
Right. And I see what you're saying. I don't know if the fact that he's passed really negates...
It doesn't negate the harm he caused, but it means that he cannot still be successful and financially profit while still going around and causing harm.
Well, but as a moral reader, I don't know if it all comes down to whether the person's profiting.
Sure, but that's a personal choice.
Sure,
that's the difference. This in this moment. This is the narrator trying to say, well, why can't she get away with it too? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, that's fundamentally wrong. She's grasping at whatever she can.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But I do think in the moment that has less to do with the fact that they're white men than it does the fact that they're currently dead and are not going around.
Well, I think their reputations have upheld because they're white men.
Not as much. I think it's widely known now that David Foster Wallace is a piece of shit.
And yet, he still has a reputation of this beloved artist.
I think his work does.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is seen as a damaged individual.
Well, another thing that this novel really hits is the fact of how, because like you've said, the back half of this does focus a lot on social media and its effects and the backlash and everything. But Kuang mentions that the social media backlash, the literary world that this narrator is living in online, is such a small fragment of the larger reading population. And so I think it mentions, a book like American Dirt, which was for a long time on the bestseller list. And many, many people, I'm sure, read that without knowing any of the problematic, stuff from its author.
Well, that's more of a case. Well, was it like an Oprah book club pick or something like that?
Sure. But I think it's like this author is living in this literary bubble of the industry and her peers and the online backlash. But then the larger world, at least for a while until things really spiraled, was still reading her books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just very smart about perspective in that way.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think all authors are horrible people. I don't know where you're going with that.
As a writer, I don't mean to say that like all writers are, serial abusers. That's not what I mean.
No. Yeah, I think you're talking more of like using emotional or life experience in their work.
You have to siphon shit around you, right? And a lot of that shit is messy. A lot of that shit is painful. And it's hard for people around you to necessarily understand whenever you repackage things or amplify the very worst parts of things. Here's an example. I had to write, I had a fiction class in college and I had to write a short story. And it had to be, I couldn't do my usual horror nonsense. I had to write like a very grounded short story. And so I basically wrote about my time working at my uncle's sandwich shop. And I amplified his worst traits, about him being a clueless doofus, about him not knowing how to really run a business. And so it was true to my experience. And I used specific examples and specific conversations that I distinctly remember having, but I exaggerated them for dramatic and, ironic effect. And if my uncle were to read that, I don't think he would appreciate it. Right. I had another short story where a character's dad dies in a way very similar to a way my dad almost died. And the character has to deal with all these resentments he has towards his father and just grappling with that. Right. And it would be hard for my dad to read that and not think that all of it wasn't about him when it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. And I think
it was just using the circumstances that I had experienced
yeah.
to weave a fiction.
I think both of those are really good examples of the point you're making. And I think it's fundamentally different from when Athena took this traumatic experience of sexual assaults that June disclosed to her and wrote a story about it. Because like that, like what you're detailing are your personal, experiences, feelings towards your family members and your own internal things. And this is just like mining someone else's trauma for your own story.
Okay, I didn't get my dad's permission to use his near-death experience for a story, right?
Right.
That's his trauma too. I don't know how he feels about the incident, Like, if you needed a release form for every emotion that somebody experienced in order to write about it, nothing would ever get written. You know what I mean?
There was a coldness, at least to the portrayal of what Athena was doing, that I don't think exists in either of your examples.
Because
you're too close.
There needs to be
to what you were writing about, whereas Athena was not.
There needs to be.
Okay.
It's not quite to the level of Kill Your Darlings, but there needs to be some kind of like surgical precision to it, right?
Yeah.
Like in order to make something that will be worth reading, it needs to appeal to other people. And I'm not talking about in a commercial sense. I'm talking about on an emotional level. June even admits this. She says, like, how many other women have had this experience where they went through this and then were doubting themselves and didn't know if what had happened to them had really happened to them. And that's why the story was so successful. Like, yes, it happened. It was based off of what happened to her, but it appealed to readers. And that was the job of the writer.
True.
Like, saying that, like, you have just like ownership over those emotions means that, like, I don't know, we're all each individual sociopaths that can't relate to one another.
I don't think it's that extreme. Yeah.
But that's the job of the writer, is to connect that story, those exact emotions. She said that she didn't relay exactly how she felt word for word, but she relayed how she like felt on the inside. She didn't use her exact words that she told her, but she relayed how she felt on the inside as if like she knew. That's the job of the writer, not to just be a journalist and take down the quotes and put them in the newspaper. That's a different kind of writing.
It is a very different kind of writing. Can I mention something that resonated with me when it comes to Athena's writing? Even more so in terms of like the industry as a whole, is how, you know, it was explained when it comes to Athena, she was a successful author, but she was also pigeonholed from the very start of her career. And she was treated as like a token minority by these publishers. There was even a quote, which I don't have directly in front of me, but basically saying that she was turned down, or another author was turned down because they, quote, already had an Asian writer publishing a novel this season, right? And like the topics that she could write about: Chinese history, trauma related to Chinese history. You know what I mean? So it's like you can only, though, that's what sells to a white audience. That's what launched Athena's career, and she was like suffocated by it. Which probably isn't the right expression to use. No, you know, we can talk about how she actually died in this book.
Sure.
But not what I meant. But I think that really, really nails a major problem with the industry, and honestly, a major reason why this book exists in the first place. Yeah. This book meaning Yellowface.
Right. No, for sure. It's a sad indictment, but it's a true indictment.
It is.
Of the industry, where it's, oh, well, you know, now if you have this many writers with this many backgrounds, it's now you're suddenly, you know, a black imprint, or, you know, a Latino imprint, or whatever, you know. It's like, well, no, that's not what that means. You're just publishing writing, right? You know, but like, that's not how it's spun, right? It sounds ridiculous, but that's how it operates. It's really dumb, but it's the truth.
And it's also a major counterpoint to what you get from June as a narrator, where she's convinced that she's the victim of quote unquote reverse racism, and that as a white person in this industry, she is now the one who lacks opportunity. All the stuff that you hear from white people nowadays who have like taken an actual problem in the industry and turned it around to make themselves look like the victim.
Right. I think I've talked about this exact thing before.
Yeah, I'm sure we have.
Where it's like, I struggled to break into traditional publishing.
Yeah.
And I could have done what June did and been like, oh yeah, well, it's because of diversity hires, you know, I can't get in because they're taking all the jobs. It's like, well, no, that's not the case. It's just that it's ultra fucking competitive. There's not enough jobs. The way that it works is the entry level jobs don't have enough fucking pay, which this book also talks about. Not enough pay, no benefits, no room for advancement. And then you're the first in, last out. Last in, first out. Scratch that, reverse it kind of thing. And so you're let go immediately. You're just all recycling the same group of people for the same, you know, jobs. It has nothing to do with like, you know, affirmative action or diversity hires or anything like that. It's just that it's a fucking brutal industry.
Yeah.
Which is why I just decided to fucking do my own shit because it was not working out. Like I highlighted the parts where the one girl is like, yeah, I applied to 20 different places and I couldn't get an email back. And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it.
20 seems
fucking
low.
Tell me about it. Well, yeah, that actually is really low. I was like, you probably should apply to more places. But yeah, no, I fucking tell me about it.
And yeah, and her mindset is just a way to justify her actions in this book.
Right. Yeah.
Simply.
Yeah, it's the easy way out.
It's the easy way out,
like,
exactly. It's taking solace in your supporters who are Fox News viewers.
Right. Yeah. Getting
that twisted and like so far deep into what you've done. Which is why,
same thing. It's the same thing like whenever going to school, it's like, oh yeah, like minority scholarships. And it's like, well, no, it's not really happening. Like nobody can afford this shit. Like I went to the whitest of white schools.
And it's so
like
funny because
80%.
they forget why those scholarships exist in the first place, which is to provide some sort of counteraction to the overwhelming racism in the country.
Yeah. To
try and give people a chance. And now that's weaponized, even that.
Yep.
So this book is very smart about all those things. What'd you think about the final few chapters and where she kind of ended the story? Because it's a difficult, I think it's self-aware in that way because June is trying to write her comeback novel about that. Honestly, the synopsis sounds like what we've just read in Yellowface. It gets a little meta in that way for a bit.
Yeah.
And she even says there, it's like hard to come up with an ending to a story like this.
Yes.
That said, I think this novel does a good job.
Endings are tough.
Yeah.
Endings are really hard. It was losing me a little bit with this like sudden like horror angle.
Yes. It was there.
Just
to be fair, it was there from the start.
It was there.
But for it to be the primary focus of a chapter felt a little jarring.
Yes. Yeah. Because then you're literally changing genre now. At the 11th hour. And for a story that was so grounded.
Although I know I agree with you, although there's an argument to be made, and it's right here in the acknowledgments where she says Yellowface is in large part a horror story about loneliness in a fiercely competitive industry. So a lot of the grounded experiences in this novel can be viewed as horror.
Of course. Yeah, no. Yeah. The so much of this shit, like I have so many fucking quotes that literally like experiences that fucking keep me up at night.
There you go.
Hold on. I have so fucking many. No more Nelnet emails for the rest of my life, thank God. My mother won't care, or she might only pretend to care and ask inane questions about how the list works, which will feel worse. I'd feel lucky to even get a Kirkus review, and that had been a little more than a plot summary. Most sales happen in pre-orders.
Oh, there you go.
Never pays to bully a poor editorial assistant.
Oh yeah, that's hits right on the nose, doesn't it?
Having to pay the cost of my useless English degree. Publishing moves slowly in all caps. Yeah, like just so much shit.
So see, we weren't transitioning the book club out of horror after all.
No, but at the same time, for it to be like, okay, are you going to have her fully lose her mind now? Like, what is what's going to be the angle here?
Like, I understand bringing back the, I guess, what was she, a publicist assistant?
She was an assistant editor, I think.
Assistant editor, bringing the disgruntled assistant editor back from earlier on in the book makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was fine. But for it to, for like, that's what I mean about like the escalation, like where the racism kept escalating. It's like now all of a sudden she's going to like attack this girl. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it got a little thriller-esque in a way that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then, but I do think it bounced back in the final chapter because ending it on a note of optimism for June about after even everything that's happened, she's still believes that she can find a way to navigate this industry and gets chance after chance after chance. Just kind of nails the whole point home here about white privilege and everything that's going on. I thought that was a good way to end it.
Yes, that was like whenever it grounded it back to the industry and how she's going to formulate the next pitch for her book.
Yes,
is much more effective than her being bit by this former assistant editor on the steps of where they shot the ending of The Exorcist.
I do like that little detail, though. I have to say, it's a good setting for that scene if you're going to have it.
It's very funny considering I just talked a little bit about The Exorcist last week.
You did, yes.
And then read the ending this week where they drop The Exorcist. I think we talked a little bit about the relatability of this narrator. And for me, the most relatable thing was whenever she goes to visit her mom. And her mom doesn't understand anything about what she does or the industry or even the medium.
And doesn't
attempt to. And she wants her to become an accountant.
Yeah.
And June is saying in narration that or I guess no, she says to her mom that she can't have an office job anymore. And it's like, yeah.
And it's a fascinating detail too that her sister Rory is, I believe, like an accountant or has one of those careers. And the mother views Rory as more successful, even though at that time, I think June was bringing in more money from her.
She was, and which is funny though, because she knows that too, because her sister gave her mother the tax returns.
That's right. There you go.
So she would actually have hard proof of that, but it didn't matter. She still wanted to be an accountant. But it's like, yeah, no office job, no freedom. Yes, being free. It's like I felt seen there by this plagiarizing racist.
Well, that's kind of the brilliance of this book, isn't it? Because I feel like there are pieces of R.F. Kuang in the June character for sure. There's pieces of her in Athena, and there's experience about. So like she comes from an academic background where she studied Chinese studies, East Asian languages. She's obviously worked and is very familiar with the publishing industry, so knows all the little nuances. And you have the personal struggles of the characters in the book that feel autobiographical at times. So this is just like an example of like a book that really could only be a story that could be only told by this person at this time, you know? Which is just like so cool when things come together that way.
Yeah. I do want to, I'll say one more like personal thing here because this is like, it brings out a lot of very close. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer.
Like David Foster
as much. Yeah, just like him with the bandana and everything. And I expressed as much to my mom. And for whatever reason, and she has never quite explained why, she said to me, "Oh, you're not going to be a writer." And ever since, she has said that that is not what she meant, and that's not what she meant to say. But she's never offered up an alternative for what she meant to say. And it's unfortunately stuck with me for a very long time, as you can see by me relaying it now at 30 years old. And I don't have any, negative feelings about it anymore. In fact, I think it's kind of funny, especially considering I've now published 2 of my mom's books.
Yeah, that is a pretty good result there. Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, no, I get it and I can see it. Like I almost feel like Dr. Manhattan or something.
Oh God.
Like on Mars,
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Where I can see it all. It's like,
all right. It
is 2001. My mom has told me I will not be a writer. It is 2023. I have published the coloring book. I just like see all these things, like the photographs of the sand just up here on Mars. I'm blue and naked for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny how shit like that works. Like, I don't know if it is just really like there's a part in here where I really didn't think we'd talk about this for like over an hour, but, there's a part in here where it's like writing is such a solitary fucking thing. And it is mostly because of the fear of having your ideas stolen. There's such a grand narcissism to writing where you go from like, it's basically it's over and we're so back meme. Like that's just writing. It's like, oh, this is fucking shit. Nobody's ever going to want to read this. I don't even want to fucking read this. I have to throw this away. I have to burn this. I have to burn my eyeballs. I never want to look at this again. To this is the greatest thing ever written. This is the greatest novel. And I can't show this to anybody because if they get their eyeballs on it, they're going to steal it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it just vacillates between the two over and over and over. And so writing is just this very solitary thing. And you are completely by yourself doing it. Like, yes, there are workshops. Yes, you go to classes for it too. Like, but even at school, you know, it's like, even when you have your work critiqued or whatever, it's this very solitary thing. Even in the editing process, right? Like, you give your work to an editor. Say somebody gives their work to me. I give them my feedback. It's still then up to them to either take my feedback into consideration or make the changes themselves or grapple within their own head with what I've said to them. It is a very insular feeling, no matter what process, like what step in the process you're in. And it does even though getting a book manufactured involves so many fucking people, all the way, like even independently publishing involves so many fucking people, even people you will never meet in your life. You will never meet the person that actually prints your book. You know, you'll never meet the person that packages the book. You will never meet any of those people. You might not even meet the person that does your cover, depending on how you get it done, mm-hmm. right? Like all of these little factors, all these little bits and pieces, but it's still so fucking solitary because of that.
And this novel captures, I think, a good part of that feeling.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And it's like, yes, you can have these writing friends, and yes, you could have these groups that you belong to, and, you know, network and blah, 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 and, you know, online. But it's like, it's either like a vacuum, or it's all a facade, or it's ends up not even being that important. Mm-hmm. And it's just the way it is. It's just this solitary act. And it's a fucking overdone quote that I probably plastered all over my Tumblr circa 2012. But it's a fucking Hemingway quote where he's like, all that there is to writing is just sitting at a typewriter and bleeding. Mm-hmm. And that's what it fucking is.
That is a very
you're
good
on
quote.
Your own. Yeah, you're on your own, and that's it. So I don't know.
Yeah, good book, isn't it?
Yeah. Kind of wish didn't wait so long to read it.
I know. Yeah. I just want to quickly mention, I think the most devastating scene in this whole book for me is she gets invited to an event. She is in June. And it's like a reading that she does about the Last Front, which is about the Chinese labor camps. And she meets this old man who has been anticipating this event for weeks. He was very excited about it, and he wanted to have the opportunity to tell June how much writing this book meant to him, because was it his family member, or maybe he himself was involved directly with the labor camps, and he was just like so.
I think it was either his father or his uncle or something.
Yes,
like that.
And so he couldn't believe that someone had. He was just so happy that feeling that this untold piece of history was, conveyed and turned into a bestseller, and the tremendous guilt that June felt by that interaction, that of course doesn't last all that long because she's able to spin things in her head and justify it. But man, if that wasn't an effective scene right there and didn't really get to the heart of the problem here with ownership of a story and who should be telling what story and all of that. So really, really great scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and R.F. Kuang has done what I thought was impossible, which is gotten me to consider reading fantasy again, because I just want to read more of her work. So I might try the Poppy War.
Okay.
Even though I've really struggled with fantasy in the past, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do we want to pick something now for book club? Keep it going, or cool off for a bit?
We could return to it. I was hoping maybe you had something, because I thought we would alternate back and forth like this. You had the first pick, I had this one, but we could figure it out.
Yeah, let me think of something.
Okay.
And then I'll pick.
It'll be our December pick. No.
Yeah. Who knows?
No, we'll hopefully have a quicker turnaround this time. This is,
Yes. But yeah, in the meantime, I think we have a movie to talk about. I don't think I'll have a whole lot to say.
Same.
But
same.
Yes. So for this week, we watched Dario Argento's Inferno, which I hadn't seen before, and then you didn't remember if you'd seen.
Yeah.
But then turns out you had seen it before.
With Argento, I get scenes from his movies mixed together because they're all so similar.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, so this is the follow-up to Suspiria, and part of a loose trilogy of the Three Mothers, because you can't forget the Three Mothers.
No, you have to know about the Three Mothers.
You really need to know. Because I was looking it up a little bit afterwards.
There's a whole book, you see.
There's a whole book called The Three Mothers. So when he made Suspiria, there was not a planned trilogy. And so afterwards, it kind of needed to be, because they don't mention the Three Mothers in Suspiria. So this is the one where that gets introduced, and boy, do they introduce it.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third movie, which I forget the name of.
Tenebrae?
I think that's the name of the mother, right? But it's not the name of the movie.
I'll look it up.
Mother of Tears. That didn't come out until 2007, actually. So quite a big gap. In Italian, it was actually called The Third Mother, which I don't know if that's better or worse. But yes, Inferno. It's a bit of an odd one. I have a question. What language did you watch it in?
English.
Okay.
It was whatever the default was on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And I know that Argento has done this thing before where he will cast actors who speak different languages and then he will dub the entire movie, which I think is just absolutely insane. I don't know if that's what happened here.
So I might be misremembering, but I think for Suspiria, he had all of the he had actors from that spoke English, that spoke Italian, that spoke German, and he had all of them speak to each other in the scenes in their native language.
Yes, incredible.
And then dubbed it wherever it needed to be shown. So it had it dubbed in Italian and had it dubbed in English and presumably also in German. Yeah. So for this one, I was like, okay, is he going to keep doing that or what's the deal? So for my copy, I had English, which was in 5.1 surround. And then I had Italian that was just in stereo.
Oh, God. Okay. Oh, wait. So those are two different audio copies. It's not that the English dialogue was in... Well, there is no Italian dialogue unless you're watching... I'm sorry. Continue.
So
it's a mess.
So I was curious. I was like, well, because the opening credits, there's a lot of Italian names like that are in it. And I'm like, okay, what language... What language are their lips moving in? Was what I wanted to know. Like, is this audio track dubbed or not? And for a good bit, I couldn't tell because the brother, like the main guy he becomes the main guy, is a terrible actor.
Oh yeah, full stop.
And so I thought he was being dubbed.
No,
in English because he was so bad. So I tried switching back and forth, but just the audio quality of the stereo Italian was so much worse than the 5.1 English that I went back. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is actually syncing to some of the actors' lip movements. And then also I discovered that the sister, or no, not the sister and the...
You're confusing me because aren't the Three Mothers also the Three Sisters?
Well, I guess they're sisters with each other.
Yeah, so I don't know who's...
No, but the main guy, his sister, and then his friend from school were both... They're Italian, but they were speaking English. Mm-hmm. So I just left it on English after that. I was like, okay, fine.
When you mention that he's a bad actor, the one scene that pops out to me is that when he passes out by the in like the hotel, and they're like, we're gonna give him heart medicine for his heart, and then the very next scene is he wakes up, doesn't know what happened. He asks the woman. It's like, I don't know what happened last night. Oh, it was your heart. We gave you heart medicine. And he's like, I don't have heart problems, but thank you. It's just very, very, it felt like a, what was it? The Room. It felt like that level of like dialogue and execution. Like it was like a, what's that guy's name? I forget his name, but the guy who did The Room. It was like on that level. Yeah. And like, you know, when you watch Dario Argento, you know what you're getting. You know what his strengths are, you know what he does well. And he does those things well in this film when they happen. But there's a whole lot of time where he isn't doing those things and then everything falls apart.
I think it, like, I get that was the whole gimmick of like, there's like 2 locations or whatever. Yeah. But there was really no point for there to be 2 locations.
Oh, not at all.
In this movie.
Because they're really
like
just the same. Part,
right. Which was confusing on its own. Yeah. Because they look the same, where you're going back and forth between Rome and New York because they both just look like a stage. Like there was not much point to that. It was just to get the brother to New York, which doesn't look like New York because it's taking place at this castle of an apartment complex.
And but more than that, the entire purpose of this movie is to just set things up to get the cool giallo, you know, over the top, bloody horror kills. And they just spend way too much time setting those up in the most like boring ways possible. And when you do get to those moments, they're terrific. They're like unmatched, at least for like the era and the style of movie. I just think they're so good. But man, is it a slog getting to them. Yeah.
It's like if Jigsaw from Saw like really walked you through each one of his traps, but like as he was building it.
Sure. Yeah. You know? That makes sense. And then also if your characters for some reason also had to walk, physically spend time walking to the trap as well. Like you had to get to the destination.
Like the one that sticks out to me was the one, I guess it was the sister that gets killed. Spoilers. The sister gets killed. It doesn't matter.
Well, like, it's Dario Argento, so all the women are either getting objectified or killed in some horrendous way.
Yes. And she is getting chased by somebody. It doesn't matter. I don't think it was ever explained who was chasing her. And she's in some basement or something. And then she gets caught by the nail. Yeah. And all of a sudden there's like a guillotine above her. And it is falling down so fucking slowly. And then it stops above her neck. And then the guy that's chasing her has to set it up again. And then just bring it down manually. Yeah. Over and over again. It's like, why did it need to come down so slow?
I know.
Like, wouldn't it be much more suspenseful? And I don't know, maybe I've just been ruined by modern horror or something. If it, you know, slammed all the way down, but it, you know, stopped just short of her neck. And so then he had to do it manually and had to keep chopping the neck, you know? Sure. I don't know.
Yeah. Still a cool scene though, once you actually get into it. Yeah. I think that there's like, okay, I don't dislike this. I can't say I dislike this movie because I'm about to like rattle off 4 different scenes that I think are tremendous. So at that point, I'm like, no, I can't say this is a bad movie. There's just like a lot of unnecessary, I guess, attempts at suspense that really don't feel like anything other than getting from point A to point B. Yeah. But you have the underwater scene, which is my favorite in the movie in the beginning when she's retrieving her keys and the dead bodies surface.
That was so good.
Incredible. That was so fucking cool. You have the cat in the lecture hall. I was like, yeah, no, go ahead. Okay,
can I talk about the underwater thing for a second?
Of course.
So whenever she finally like gets under the water, I was like, oh, this seems like it's going to be really extended. And I'm like, wow, she could really hold her fucking breath, huh? Yeah. Because it was like 5 minutes at least.
Yeah, well, she came up for air once. And also it did feel like the entire scene was happening in slow motion. So I think there's that to account for as well. Although at times it feels like the movie is happening in slow motion, so...
Yes, but like also it's like so... It's like... It's not quite surreal, but like it's almost like dreamy, like everything that happens. Yes. So it's like, yeah, fuck it, whatever, you know?
And then anyway, go ahead. My next favorite scene is in the lecture hall with the cat. Yeah. Just a bit of a trip there.
Holy hell. That chick, oh my God. I know she's like as old as our moms, but at this point, but like the chick with the cat.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, she's stunning.
Yeah, like just unreal.
She's stunning. Absolutely.
Just the way she's staring like that. Oh my God.
I think she's been in multiple Argento movies. This she has a peripheral role.
Oh yeah, she's just there to stare at the camera.
Yeah, she's just there to be unsettling.
I was not unsettled. I was fucking transfixed.
That's a good word, sure. So that's like, I think, the scene I associate with this movie the most. Then you have the guy who tries to, or I guess he kind of does, dispose of the litter of kittens in the river and gets eaten alive by rats, and then finally killed off by the hot dog vendor. I don't know what's going on or why.
Like, so that was so fucking funny, because as soon as I see the guy running with the knife, I'm like, well, he's gonna kill him, but I just don't know why.
I don't know why. I think it had to do with the eclipse, and I think the general like curse of the mothers in the general vicinity. Like, you have the smell, right? The smell, the sweet. Oh, and I love how unsubtle everything is, because they explain the sickly sweet smell, right? And she uses that.
It's the cakes.
It's the cakes. She uses that exact word. And then you have the other character in, I guess they were in Rome? Yeah. The other character in Rome is taking a taxi to the hotel, and she's like, rolls down the window. She's like, oh, it's a sickly sweet smell. Just in case we didn't know what she was referring to. Yeah, dialogue has never been the strength for Mr. Argento. So that was just wild and very good, the rat scene. And then, of course, you have the ending with the whole place on fire and navigating with death. The actual manifestation of death was very cool.
Yeah.
So, the movie ends on a very, very high note too. It's just what I described took up maybe 15 minutes of screen time.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest of it kind of just feels like a slog. So there's that.
Yeah. Do you want to know what my favorite line in the movie is?
Of course. Whenever
he gets to like the secret lair in the basement or whatever, after he has to go through like the Alice in Wonderland crawl space with the cats eating the mice that don't pay attention to him for some reason. And he meets the dude in the wheelchair, and the dude in the wheelchair says, well, I'm sure you know who I am at this point. And then the stupid, terrible actor guy says, no, I don't. It's like, yeah, none of this shit matters.
It's funny because, like,
none of this matters at all.
Maybe that was meant for the viewer, but then I would argue that the viewer also does not know who that guy is.
Right. No, I don't know who you are.
It's very good.
We saw you once before.
Yeah. So I've never seen the 2007 movie. I've actually that one I've not rounded out the trilogy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to suggest that we do either.
I heard his movies get terrible, like at the turn of the century there.
Sure, I could see that.
Yeah.
I would argue they were getting terrible at the turn of like the midway point of this movie. So
yeah. Yeah, I do have to say that guy just like struggling to drown those cats was pretty effective for somebody that likes cats.
Oh, super effective. There are people, there's someone I know who this immediately would disqualify me suggesting this movie to them. So that's one of those things where it's like, that can fuck you up.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I want to mention. The sound of the kittens in the bag.
Yes.
Very, very effective.
Yes.
The audio in general, apart from the dialogue, was very good. Like, it's a great score. I mean, when that song kicks in as the place is burning down at the end, fantastic. I was falling asleep. That woke me up.
Just same.
Very, very good. Very good. So, I'm conflicted with this. I'm conflicted with Argento in general.
Sure.
If you can like find a compilation of the scenes I mentioned, maybe watch that instead of the actual whole movie. But
another good one is whenever the guy in the crutches is getting attacked. This is before he tries to drown them, but he's getting attacked by the cats.
Oh yeah. The cats.
And it literally just looks like
it
literally looks like a couple people off screen are throwing like real cats at him. Like they're obviously like puppets or, stuffed or whatever, but they look convincing. And Well, maybe they're real cats, but yeah, they just look like they're just real cats getting hucked at this guy on crutches, which was fun. The drowning was not as fun, but then he gets eaten and he just keeps screaming, "They're eating me alive. They're eating me alive."
Yes. Very self-aware, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I just love how stupid the brother was.
Mm-hmm.
Where he just like thinks that his sister is just like out, you know, and wasn't like killed.
It's so funny because, like, you know, there's 5 minutes left in this movie. He's faced with death itself, meaning like one of the mothers or whatever, however you want to explain it. And he's still like, hey, where's my sister at?
Yeah. Which is funny because wasn't she like embodying his sister or whatever? All those brunettes look the same.
That's another. I remember the first time I watched this, the 2 location thing was the first thing that threw me off. And then some of the actors look very similar.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, what is, I can't, and I don't want to keep track of what's happening here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that guy that was just hanging out reading the magazine back in Rome when the other girl's like, oh, I don't want to be alone.
Oh yeah.
He's like, sure, I got a couple hours to kill.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he says. And so he just hangs out and reads a magazine and he's like, I'm a sports writer. It's like in Rome. Like, okay.
It's a big
funny.
soccer town. Big soccer.
I know, but like, I think you'd say you're a soccer writer, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess maybe it's implied.
I guess so. He's like, yeah, I'm a sports writer.
Also, everyone's speaking English, so.
Yeah.
And that could have been New York. I don't even know.
No, I know
that was
the Rome,
but it might as well have been New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was with the dude making all that like goop at the bottom of the library?
Was he different from the one who was wearing the black gloves that was snatching up all the books?
I don't think so. But then how do you get to New York?
Yeah, that's right. He was in 2 places at once.
Yeah.
Which made the 2 places feel the same even more.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not really going to get bogged down by Argento's logistics of everything here.
Yeah.
Because you really could tear into it. But
it's just so funny because like some of the sets were very, very cool.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's like, well, why did you need to separate
honestly
the fictional locations?
He knows the visual aesthetic of taking a taxi at night in the pouring rain to an intimidating location because he reused it between that and Suspiria. I think he used it maybe 4 times.
Right.
But it's
the outside
good.
of this building might as well have been the Suspiria building.
Yeah, which I think is kind of the point, right? Because it's related.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure.
Haven't you read The Three Mothers? Don't you understand?
Yeah, I got a Lacrimosa and Suspiriorum and the other one.
That's right.
The other one. And like he's just so good at color, though.
That's what I mean. Yeah, there's like neon drenched in the rain, and
it's not even quite neon though, because like even like in that basement scene, you know, there's just like these purples and blues.
Mm-hmm. It's just
like cast.
It's the coloring and it's the lighting too.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's like the lighting is so specific, and like the way you would need to cast this light and shadows is so fucking meticulous.
Yeah,
and it's like it's evoking darkness without being like fucking dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool.
And I think that's one of the main reasons why people still watch his movies and why he has such a reputation, you know?
And you just have this weirdo synth going on in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't quite the proggy shit from Suspiria, you know? But yeah, just like this weirdo synth. But sometimes it's like doing that classical shit because they were studying classical music.
That's right.
But then it just goes like off the fucking wall, you know? 1980 synth. Yeah. But you could easily cut like at least 40 minutes from it.
At least.
It could have been like a Twilight Zone episode.
It really could have.
Oh, man.
So next week is Thirst, right?
Yes, Thirst from Park Chan-wook. That should be pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I'd imagine.
Yeah. And I will try to get that out. I try to get out episodes on Wednesdays, if you didn't realize my schedule by now. But I will try to get that for Halloween, which is on a Tuesday this year.
Oh, excellent.
Just so we can keep some, thematic energy going. So, yeah, that's what I'll attempt to do.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we'll do that. And I think that's going to do it for us because we somehow managed to do over 2 hours again.
Yeah.
What a shocker.
Felt like I was walking through a long corridor in a hotel in Rome.
Just a long hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for listening. Really do appreciate it. If you have any thoughts about Yellowface, if you read along with us for some reason, and you waited this long.
If you read the book 3 months ago and still remember it.
Yes.
Let us know.
Or if you got some thoughts about Dario Argento. Or about red flag anime, all of the topics we discussed today.
Yeah, I'd be curious for some more opinions on that one. Because it's not looking great for you.
Okay, all right. Well, regardless, video at DeadEndRoad.co. You can write in, let us know. You can stay anonymous if you wish. Yeah. Confidential sources. Yeah, that's going to do it for us. Check out the YouTube for full clips, episode or segment breakdowns, all that good stuff. Check out the publishing site. We got some bundle deals now. You can get some plushies. Plushies are very cool. They're actually really soft. They're very good, high quality plushies, I will have to say. And check out the coloring books there. They're also very good. I worked out the beef I had with my printer. It only took 3 weeks. Yay. I was tearing my hair out. Yes. More news on that stuff coming. I gotta redo all my websites now. That's gonna be. I got a hell week coming up, but yeah, check out the publishing site, publishing.deadendroad.co for bundle deals, all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah, appreciate you listening. We'll catch you next week.
All right.